Welcome to the Hospitality Maverick podcast with me, Michael Tingsare. We at Hospitality Mavericks are here to inspire leaders to create heart-centered and profitable businesses from the inside out, the kind that both employees and customers love and support. Thanks to BizSimply for sponsoring this episode as our show partner. And BizSimply is the all-in-one HR, workforce management, road and operations software designed and built by hospitality experts to make every shift run like clockwork. And we join forces to help the industry to find new ways to become even more innovative in how we lead our people, how we operate, to how we grow our businesses, to how we serve our customers. Together we want to share strategies and tools that can make the industry thrive long term, not just survive.
Yes, you mentioned right at the beginning that, there were always people who would come by the stall in the early days, sometimes just for a chat, not even for food. We have a responsibility to be, as far as we can be, open and available to give people a positive experience, a happy moment in their day.
This is Kleeman and Yeshi Jampa, founders of Taste Tibet, a restaurant and food stall, which is a hidden gem in Oxford. And they bring the amazing food of culture and Tibet to you. And they recently won an award for their free weekly food donations to vulnerable people in the community. And what I found also incredible was that they, as an independent business over the last 2 years, also had the headspace and energy to write and release a cookbook on the food and culture of Tibet. Julia and Yeshi starts the conversation by sharing the amazing journey from when Yeshi was living in Tibet, learning how to cook inside a yak hair tent at a very young age, and how they both met up on a mountain in India and then decided to move to the UK and eventually launched a food business. We dive into what the role of the business is besides making profit, and they explain that they want to build a business that makes impact on people, community and the planet, and they share how their purpose is lived in everything they do. They share how they approach growth as a business and how they're making sure they can fulfill their purpose as well as growing a business in all aspects. We discuss how hospitality can play a crucial role in society and how it can make the world a better place. Before you tune in, please sign up for a weekly newsletter packed with more Maverick insights, strategies and tools. Find the link in the show notes or visit hospitalitymavericks.com. This conversation will inspire you to follow your purpose and believe that everything is possible if you can imagine it. Enjoy! I'm super excited about today's conversation because we're going to be talking about, my favorite things. It's about food, it's about people, it's about community, actually 4 things, about the planet as well. And I found this business up in Oxford that's doing incredible things, and they're coming out with a book soon, and they're going to tell you much more of that. They're called Taste Tibet, and if you haven't checked them out, go and check them out, because they're actually creating a food business out of love for food and how we actually connect with the way we consume food and actually how we relate to food. And there's a lot of interesting things happening, and they're doing it a bit in a different way, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. But enough about me trying to tell what it's all about. Let's get started. I'm super excited to have you both here. So welcome, Julia and Yeshi. It's really exciting to have this conversation because I've been following you for a while and see how you evolved from starting a market stall to actually having a shop to now also becoming authors with a book soon.
Michael, thank you so much for having us. We're really so excited to be joining this conversation because we are avid listeners of the podcast and really big fans, and it's been so helpful for us to tune in every week and gain inspiration from your guests and all the insights and experience that really kind of helps to contribute to our business. So thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I'm super glad to get that feedback and hear that you actually, people in the community, have been able to help you on your journey the last couple of years. But should we start a bit with, to give people a bit of context, who you both are, why the purpose of starting Taste Tibet and how it all started out?
So we are Julie and Yeshi, and we are a husband and wife team, and we have been running Taste Tibet since 2014. So we originally met in India. Yeshi was born in very rural Tibet, and he grew up living a semi-nomadic existence, which means for 6 months of the year he was herding animals out on the plateau. 6 months of the year he was, well, I don't want to say resting, but relatively resting at home.
Yeah, kind of rest, but yeah, so also we have animals, but yeah, stay with the family because we live in the valley, and summer we go on the mountains with my dad, and we have lots of sheep and yaks, and so we go different mountains, and that's also, animals also eat, like, the different grass on the mountains, complete kind of wild, so we can take different area because the animal need nutrition,
And then in the wintertime, the animals would come back and actually live on the ground floor of the house. So they helping to heat the house. And they would obviously need some looking after them during the months that they were with the family as well. So then when Yeshi was 19, he left Tibet over the Himalayas and arrived in India, where two of his brothers were monks in monasteries in India. And he lived there for about 12, 13 years. And that's where we met, on a mountain path in the foothills of the Himalayas. And food definitely had a big part to play in our coming together. So we met on the mountain path, and that evening, Yeshi cooked me up my first real Tibetan meal. So I'd been living in China for many years. I, in a previous life, was the chief editor of the Oxford Chinese Dictionary. And I was living in Beijing and working on Chinese dictionaries, but also did kind of sideline work for NGOs. And I was in India on a brief NGO-related work project. And I took a trip to Dharamsala, which is where Yeshi was living at the time, but he had lived all over India.
Yeah, so sometimes I live in south, sometimes I live in north, sometimes I live in Delhi. So I really enjoy India. Just, different states, like different country, different language. It's really
Food.
Yeah, different food. That's really fascinating. I just crossed all the India. So when I met Julie, so I was in Dharamsala.
And so I had visited Tibetan regions in China and eaten Tibetan food before, but it was mostly food that was dressed up for tourist menus, yak burgers, that kind of thing. It really wasn't very authentic. So the first meal that Yeshi cooked me was a hand-cut noodle soup. And it was a November evening, very cold. I think it does get warm in Dharamsala in the summertime, but in the winter, the kind of cement houses are really not built to retain any heat. So that was really everything that I needed in that moment. And food was very much part of what brought us together and has kept us together. And Yeshi moved and I moved from China at the same time to the UK in 2011. No, I forgot.
2011, yeah.
Was it 2011? Yeah. And for the first few years was looking after our son, who was born in the same year. And then in 2014, when our daughter was born, and I was able to take maternity leave, and he had a bit of time away from the kids, he started Taste Tibet as a market stall in the centre of Oxford, which at the time had just a couple of kind of foodie offerings in what was otherwise a kind of what was the market at that time? It was a place where people sold batteries.
Oh yeah, kind of
this and that,
things.
Antiques, yeah, and also quite a lot of fruit and veg. So we had always been drawn to that market because for Yeshi, when he first arrived in the UK, it was one of the only places in Oxford, at least, that he was able to buy food loose, see it, touch it, smell it. He really wasn't a fan of the big supermarkets where food is sold in very small quantities behind plastic. We could talk about that a bit later. But so we started our stall there and quite quickly started taking it to events, big and small. We go to massive, big music festivals now. We're going to Glastonbury this year, and we've been to Festival, Latitude. We go to quite a lot of the big folk festivals.
Yeah, I really enjoy, the folk festivals, and the food is fantastic. And it was also like I want to learn the culture and the really English and culture and music, and can see interested people, and just really, really fascinating folk festivals.
So we still cater at a lot of the big festivals, but in 2020 November it was, so during the middle of the second lockdown, we opened our first fixed premises in Oxford. And obviously, to begin with, we were operating just takeaway only for really quite a long time, the first 6-7 months of running out of that space. And now we're able to have people come and dine with us, which is such a pleasure, and keep the festivals going at the same time. That's a brief history.
Yeah, and there's probably a lot of things that to go into. So what was it that made you? What was it like? Okay, we need to make a food stall in all that. Besides that, you like to come on the market, you like to connect with the food, and find out, is this good food I'm taking home? But what was it that made you think we're gonna do a market stall? And what were you thinking about making a restaurant at that point, or was it just a bit an accident, or?
I think I did a market, and then and the people feedback, and just really interested is from the people to push us, and also,
but I think to backtrack a little bit, I mean, the
yeah,
reason you started the stall in the first place is because we used to go to the market in Gloucester Green, where we later had our stall, and the few food offerings there were quite poor, and
That's
feeling
also
about food.
Yeah, the food for me is really food is so important. Food is a huge subject, and the food is for me is how works the food, and that's the I can do much better, and also I can as a how foods work, so where they come from, and I can
Introduce something of your own culture at the same time.
Same time the culture, and it's just the food is really fascinating for me to passion to give the people, and that's the first thought. I can do much better at that, and
then like you said, I mean, because I think that there wasn't an awful lot of time and thought that went into the business in the early stages. We didn't really see it as a business. It was at the very beginning just quite a makeshift setup that was an experiment in how was Yeshi's food going to work, how was the concept going to take off or not. And after a while, and it really wasn't very long, when the feedback was really very good and the food was all sold out, and we realized we had something that worked, then we realized that had become really what we were doing. I never went back to work at the end of that second maternity leave. I didn't return to the day job. So
it's like my family. They're all the chef, and I realized like that. I have no idea first, because my parents, they're like we are doing something in the community, and they're the chef always. When I was young, I saw them. They're cooking all the time, and they're for the community chef, and somebody's wedding. They're volunteering for chef, and that's realize we can cook that's good food, and that's for me so important. To I can to teach other people to how foods work. And I went to the market, and then we can meet the people and chat. Still I do, and now my customers become like my friends. It's just I learn from them. Just really fascinating. It's like not to work like in the office. I realize it's really face to face, and we can talk, and this is really I really do enjoy it. With customers.
Real life. I think especially when we were in the market, and we were in quite an exposed place. And Oxford has all kinds, obviously there's the academics, and then there's a lot of people who come from abroad, visiting scholars. But then there's normal people going about normal day-to-day jobs as well.
And also I have lots of homeless people as well. And just, come and to have food, and, I chat with them.
So the conversations are so varied.
Yeah, but for me, it's like why I just also my culture as well. Just doesn't matter who farmers or rich or poor, And just treat can just the same. And some people, they're like homeless people comes, they can't pay the money, but still are treated for them the same way, and what they want, and I just talk with them, and just same people, why not? So it just the man, yeah, it's like test bed concept is like I want to treat people well, and how do we can food how works, and then that's kind of man test bed main goals in not only make money, so just like how work in society.
I love I picked up a couple of things I was writing down here. It's like the love for, food and community as well. And it's also about sharing a different philosophy around food. I could hear that as well. And then also that you actually just took this as an experiment. You didn't know where it will go, but you thought you had something and you put it out there and you got feedback on it. And then you actually, in principle, you created something that's not scalable, and then in principle suddenly it becomes a business because people loves it and it gives you feedback, it gives you confidence, and you go and execute it. I think that's really good. You didn't go and tell them what to like it or not. You said, here it is, try it out. So what was people's response? Because food from Tibet, a lot of people probably tried Chinese or Indian food, can really relate to that, but as you said, have to actually really taste the real food from Tibet, because what is the whole concept and idea around food from Tibet? I guess you eat seasonal as well. You don't have strawberries in a fridge in the winter.
Exactly, and then so fast, I'm sure here as a long time we don't have fridge, it's the same here, and we does things, how foods and how long keep, so the fresh as possible, if you cook fresh, anything fresh, and food ultimately food become delicious, so if you don't cook the fresh, and then obviously food's not that delicious.
Obviously in Tibet there are during the winter months it's very difficult to come by fresh produce, even in Yeshi's region, and he came from a village at relatively low altitude that during spring, summer, autumn months actually gave quite a bounty. I mean, he often says that there was more veg than they knew what to do with. The animals did very well there because there was some veg they just the family just chose not to eat at all, just give to the animals. But during the winter months, you had to be quite careful about storing vegetables to prevent them perishing in the frost. So root vegetables like potatoes, turnips, radishes, they would be stored inside caves that the family dug out behind their home in the mountainside and sealed with mud. And obviously you could access those vegetables whenever you needed to, as long as you made sure that you sealed your cave once you'd left it.
Yeah, it's just like when you go and like bring out, it looks really, really fresh, just like muddy, it was really fresh.
But also preserving food was important during those months. You would dry peaches and apricots and also meat for use over the barren winter time. But otherwise, I think in Tibet, you're eating with the seasons. And I think that for Yeshi, that was quite a shock when he came here to understand that most people, certainly at that time, I think things have changed over the last decade, but going back more than 10 years now, most people didn't really have much of an interest or understanding in eating seasonally, and very much expected when they went to the supermarket to be able to find their strawberries or their broccoli or whatever it was at whatever time of year. I think although that was initially quite exciting for Yeshi to see that a range of vegetables was always available, that novelty quite quickly wore off, and it became quite depressing to him, the lack of seasonality. Unless you made specific trips to the farmers markets, or sometimes in the weekly market where we had our stall, they would have vegetables that were more seasonal.
Yeah, but also I do asking the vegetables that the people, why you not bring the seasonal vegetable, and then they say it's very difficult to sell
because people don't know what they are.
Yeah, and then I said you need to bring seasonal vegetable, but there's also if they're bringing they're scared of to sell. So this is hard for them as well,
It was really interesting you say there, because I think there is an element of, with vegetables, that's my own experience as well, that people don't know what to do with them sometimes. They maybe know what to do with a carrot and some peas and so on, but there's like the whole range of vegetables there's in different seasons. People don't know really how to cook with them. And I think that's the key thing. You almost feel a bit like, what I'm gonna do? You get that, maybe you get your local veg box, and that's great, but you throw half of it out because you don't know what to do with those vegetables.
Yeah, I think so. That's right. I think that, but you can do the vegetables, like it's a little bit different, but you can, if you like, change a little bit, when
Same
you
principles
cook. Yeah,
apply more or less. If you know what to do with a potato, you probably know what to do with a mooli. That's a big white radish that
yeah, but you can any vegetable, so you can change a little bit, and then you can cook.
Leafy green vegetables.
Yeah.
You're going to treat them in the same way, more
Same
or
way
less.
than it's just like other cookings, and also like some vegetables you don't need to cook that much, and you can eat. And there's like potatoes you need to cook probably, otherwise you were sick. But like least like other like vegetables you don't need to cook that much,
You talked a bit about the journey, you experiment, then it turned into a business. Is there a bit more clarity today what your goal is for all this? Because you're gone, you did a market stall, you are doing events now, you're still doing festivals, because that's a big part of actually keeping yourself alive and staying connected with origin. And then now you have a bricks and mortar unit as well. What is like the vision for and now a book coming talking about your philosophy to the whole world? What is like the vision for this Taste Tibet? Is being 100 restaurants, or what is it about?
I think first of all, we really need to. We're quite new as a bricks and mortar establishment, so Yeshi's very ambitious for Taste Tibet and would love to make it more than the one premises. But we first of all need to make sure that that one runs well and that we have a concept that we can take elsewhere, whether that's around the next corner or to a different city. But as I say, he's very ambitious. I think that Yeshi didn't go to school at all until he went to India when he was 19. So I very much feel like he's not being constrained he's never been told you can't do that. He's not constrained in, yeah, I think it does. So, very often, he has ambitious plans and I'll say, but we can't do that. And he says, but why not? And actually, there isn't really an answer to that. It is all entirely possible. But I think, in my very extensive education, I so often was told
no.
told no. And I think what we have is quite a kind of street food style restaurant that does as much takeaway as it does dine in, and the dine in element is a kind of everybody eating together at long tables, sharing quite kind of informal meal, and so we understand now that we've put that into practice and we've had a good response from it, that is the concept that we'd like to go with.
Yeah, but it's also like in the restaurant business, like so many way we can do, we can do fancy restaurant and just so many way we can do. But in the Taste Tibet, like philosophy, like anybody can come in and eat in with us, or we can take it to home, and that's the man we did just make as a work with the customer, but also we learn through. But also my goals, like anybody can enjoy.
And we really strive to be as inclusive as possible, to keep our prices as low as we can. Obviously, that's a challenge, but to make it so that anybody can come through and afford to eat with us. And we also have, and this is something that we developed during the pandemic when we were not able to serve people at our market stall, develop like a chilled foods line so that there is food that is available even more cheaply. So some people come in and we have food in the freezers. That is food that we usually have left over at the end of a Saturday evening, which is our last day's service of the week. So we can kind of confidently cook more than we need on a Saturday, knowing that whatever we have left over, we can box up for sale and put in our freezers. And because there's no VAT on chilled food, we can pass that saving on to our customers. So we have many people who come in and just use, and take away 10 boxes, or we also do them in like family sizes to save on packaging. So here's a box that feeds 4 to 6 if you're having a party kind of thing. So people can come and shop with us that way as well. So we really believe there is something for everybody at Taste Tibet. And actually, I think that that's also been quite key to our not just survival, but the way that we've thrived during these difficult pandemic times.
What is it that, you already said that you have all these, different revenue streams, and there's definitely no doubt about that's the way the market is going. But what is it that make you so different to other concepts out there? Because what is it that makes the customers come back again and again and rave about you? Because you have quite a loyal following when you start to follow you on Instagram. So you can see these people, they would be very upset if you didn't open tomorrow.
I think even before the pandemic, and we can talk about what we did to engage our community during that time in a bit. But even before the pandemic, we made community a really big part of our business. We are a local business. We had our stall in the center of town, and so we did meet tourists and office workers who passed through, but we held pop-ups, and we pitched our stall also in the area that we live, which is where we've also set up our bricks and mortar restaurant now. And in fact, going back even further in the really earliest days of Taste Tibet, before Yeshi had a driving license and could get himself from A to B, it was easier for us to have people come to our home to get food. So when our kids were bum shuffling down the the hallway, we'd have them open the doors to people who come once a week to get takeaway from our home. Many of the people who come to us now are people who've known us since way back then, and seen our kids grow up and all the rest of it. But I don't think that obviously that's a kind of highly local thing that we have going on, but which is not to say that we wouldn't get the same engagement, I think, if we moved elsewhere, because we understand the importance of working together with your community. We have a weekly newsletter that went out in those early days to people who came to us for takeaways, that we've developed since then, which is very much a kind of two-way street. We tell them a little bit about Tibet, or something that's going on in the business, how things work behind the scenes, or how we've arrived at this point. And we get a lot of feedback from people every week when we send that out, and we respond to it, and that we love that. And we think that that's key to shaping who we've become and why this thing works. And I think if we took Taste Tibet elsewhere, I think that we would very much seek to open in kind of a residential area in the same way, and be able to develop relationships with our community there, and do something positive also. We mentioned that during the pandemic, we launched very quickly we had a website, obviously, when the pandemic started, but we, realizing that we could no longer have the market store, launched an online shop about a week into the first lockdown, and started delivering food to customers. And that was chilled food. That was the food that's ultimately become the freezer food in our shop.
That's also where we learn from the customer.
We got some great feedback on that.
The customer says they want because some people are busy, and that's why the customer say you need to food freeze it, because I'm busy. Sometimes I come and take it to home. I need to. That's useful for my home. There's also we learn from customers. So their customer tell us you need to do this, that. We learn from them as well.
When we set up the online shop, we also, at the same time, this was very early days of the pandemic, set up the facility for customers at the same time as making their deliveries order, able to contribute towards a project we called Feeding the Frontline, which was, if you give us some donations, if you add a little bit to your cart as you make your order, we can cook meals and take these to hospitals. At the time, the hospitals everywhere.
First,
The canteens were not running.
Yeah, first, lockdown happened, and then hospital, the canteens not working. And so first I thought, I have some rice and dal, I just cook some food and I can deliver it. First I did some few hospitals I did. And then,
But we became much more powerful when, we put that idea to the people who were making orders with us anyway, many people were stuck at home feeling very powerless and wanting to do something to help, but unable to do that. And yes, we were in a position with sackloads of rice and sackloads of dal, at the very least, to be able to prepare
feed them.
hot
We
meals.
we can't help, but we can feed them for the food. We can, that's all I thought. Why not? I just go in the kitchen, just cook, and deliver hot food for the hospital. I did.
And we had a really, really great response with that. And at the end of that first lockdown, when some normality resumed and the canteens reopened in the hospitals, we still had quite a lot of donations to honour. And so we asked our community where they would like to see us channel those funds. And there was a local grassroots support network that started at roughly about the same time as the first lockdown hit here in the UK, and they deliver food parcels to vulnerable people, or people who were shielding, isolating, unable to get out of the house or afford basic goods. And since we stopped delivering to frontline NHS workers, so it's been nearly 2 years now, 18 months, we've been delivering every week to Oxford Mutual Aid, again, chilled food that can go into those parcels for reheating at home. And we find that, it's just a win-win situation, that, obviously there's people who are able to eat our food who would never otherwise be able to come and see us at the restaurant. But we're also working together very closely with people in our local communities who feel very much and are very much a part of that story. They're contributing financially, or if they're unable to do that, they give us the moral support that we need, to give us the energy that we need come Sunday when we make those weekly drops.
It's very interesting that you say you in principle built the business on community, just for people out there. I guess that demands a lot of effort as well. Community is not just something you say you want to do and it happens. It's like one for one, I guess. You built this and you're being able to scale that as the pandemic hit, you could really do something with it.
Yes, that's right. And I think that it works because, it's driven by genuine passion.
Yeah, if you work with the passion, and so you're never tired, whatever you do, just to push us, to work, the first thought, foods, we the first lockdown, just people just really it's like shocked, and then I thought, just I can feed some people. Of course, I just go, just cook, just feed the people. That's just and for me, it's like we make other people happy, and that's really food to make other people so happy. If someone has a delicious food and so happy, so for us as well, really happy. That's just it also works. Just make them happy, and we are so happy.
We often say that feedback feeds us.
Yeah. So they will feed back, and we have energy to feed them. If we don't have that, it's no work. Like any kind of business, if you don't have passion on the drive, otherwise no. So you few months you will fail, but it's for us like not like that. If you not work that, we can change straight away. Other way, we have passion on the food.
I love that because it's also how you look at things. Are you looking at it as a transaction, money for a thing, or you're looking at a transaction in a way that I may be able to get something that's not money back into my business that maybe doesn't really give me anything today, but maybe it does tomorrow, maybe it does in a year's time. It's about karma as well that you are putting into the world. I love that as well. As you talk about potentially to expand the business, what is your approach to this? What are you thinking about growth? Because you're very purpose driven, and how do you actually have you thought about how you actually keep on growing the purpose in a way, because the story you tell is very powerful.
I think that growth, is important to us in terms of keeping things challenging and interesting, but not growth for growth's sake. Obviously, we are motivated to do something that puts the name of Tibet out there in bright lights. I mean, I think that was a big factor at the beginning. For Yeshi, when he first arrived here, nobody could place Tibet on the map, and very often, I mean, even customers who've been coming to us for years still can't, or they'll bring their friend and they'll say, this is the yummy Nepalese food I was telling you about, but they've been eating it under the banner of Taste Tibet for years. So, we're continually driven by that. And you mentioned the book, and, that's a big part of it for us. There is no cookbook of Tibetan cuisine out there. And so...
not the books, not only for the recipes, also we have recipe, but also how work from the food from nature.
The backstory, and not just a personal backstory, but the story of
basically how we live on this earth and how it works,
and how people in Tibet have lived alongside animals and their land for thousands of years. Things are changing now,
but that's also preserved to the history.
Mm-hmm.
Or not only Tibet, and how we live on Earth, how we can. That's all that we can record.
I think in terms of how you asked specifically how we grow the business from here, and we've mentioned how that we are motivated to create more Taste Tibets, and the cookbook is part of that. But I think that staffing is key, and so finding people who are as motivated as we are about this message and who share our beliefs and passions. I think until we can have a strong team of people who share these values and visions, I think we probably will go slow. And I mean, we've gone slow up until this.
It's a definitely, why they work in Oxford, why not work in other cities? Because we travel into all the kind of UK, other parts, and festivals, and just we know that we have this really strong customers. Example, I have some folk festival in Cambridge. I go there, and we have really good customer there as well. And why not work? Because if you treat them well in a restaurant, we customers coming in, we just treat well, and that's what we message give them, and then obviously customers come back again visit. So how we treat the customers so important, because they want the love from us, but not only for just the me and Julie's, like our team, to give them. Obviously, customer will back. So that's I can say 100%. If you look after them, they will back. If you if you like example like a family, you look after each other and just will love each other. So that's kind of the same concept.
You mentioned the word slow, but I guess slow is also okay, because we are so, especially in the Western world, maybe Yeshi has a view on this. We are so focusing on, we need to move fast, we need to grow fast. And sometimes we actually forget to get things right. And then as we really move fast, everything falls apart. I've done that myself with a business. And I look back and I got some of it right with the people, but I was definitely also, I didn't have enough of the right people on board as I did that, because I created oceans of problems for myself. And it was all about people, wrong people in the wrong seat, or should never been on the bus. So how are you doing that? Even if you're moving slow, how are you starting to get that right and getting, you feel, the right people in the right seats?
Well, we have a document that we share with all our staff even before they come on board at the point of interview, that we call Taste Tibet Beliefs, Values and House Rules. So that gives all our staff history of Taste Tibet. They understand where we've come from, and so who our customers are, the fact that some of them will have visited us in our own home, seen our children grow up over these years, to make sure that the people that we recruit are comfortable with with our approach, and understand that, you know, Yeshi works so hard back in the kitchen. He gives the food so much love, but, you know, if that love is not communicated at the front line, that, you know, it becomes lost, and that's really a waste. And so we use that document to help us to make sure that we are bringing the right people on board. We encourage all our staff, especially because neither of us are usually there at the point of serving the food. Yes, she's in the kitchen, and I don't usually work front of house. So we make sure that their lines of communication are open between them and us, and we encourage them to feed back to us what is working, not working, where they need things. We make sure that we supply what they don't have. We really encourage bottom up communication and giving those staff as much responsibility as we can, and regular check-ins. It's about as much as we can do at the moment, and we're still a small team, but we need to make sure that when we do scale up, that none of that is lost, that those same processes are in place.
It's very interesting that you say you have your document, your book of culture, I call it as well. You give to people before they arrive, and they can make a choice if they want to join this kind of organization. Because we had Ari on the podcast from Singamerns, and they are very much about a very clear vision, but also very clear about what kind of culture you're joining, and that's how they did exactly how they're doing it. And that's a very interesting business as well, about how you actually, you know, you can go slow. It took them 30 years to get to 16 units, but now they have 16 very well operating units in a very small area of the US. So it's a similar approach, and I'm sure you're going to be successful with that. As you said, the pandemic was hard for everyone. What has been, you know, like significant learning over the last 2 years? Because we all come out of this on the other side. You know, either we know we need to change something we don't know yet, or we really say, wow, light bulb moment, that's what needs to happen now, because it has been disruptive and we're just starting to get out of it, and we don't know what's going to come next winter. Maybe there's going to be more, we don't know, but it definitely feels like we're going into I wouldn't call it normality, but a new paradigm in a way.
I think, you know, there's been a couple of things that we have learned most keenly, and one of those is that you can't do anything in isolation. You know, we've talked about community, but, you know, especially over the last couple of years, and I mentioned that, you know, we sensed that many people in our community were feeling quite powerless, and were happier than ever to work with us, you know, where we put it out there, to just try to improve in small ways day-to-day life, and whether that was engaging their support with, you know, working together with Oxford Mutual Aid, or just, you know, getting the right food on their tables, you know, working together and keeping lines of communication open was really important, and I think it really helped our business as well. Obviously, I think hospitality businesses have had to be really adaptable during this time, and we were not scared to try anything new. I mean, during the early stages of the pandemic, using our online shop, we even pitched up in car parks here and there. So we said, you know, people of Wallingford, we're coming to you next, and people were able to order food through the website, and we turned up in one spot. It was usually car parks, and just gave people collection times, and had people queue up for the food that they'd already paid for. And we reached new people that way, people who now come and see us in our restaurant from wherever it was that we had pitched up. And we were not scared to try new things, and I think that really paid off for us, and we met a lot of new people along the way.
If you know what you can change in a different way, you know. That's what it's, for me, it's like, why we just scared and change, and a little bit change.
I think we were also fortunate that because it was such a crazy time, people were quite forgiving, and I think that hospitality as an industry has not been a very forgiving place. You know, customers come in with a lot of expectations ordinarily, you know, but because they could understand that we were that this was a challenging time for the industry, I think although it sounded crazy to a lot of people that we opened our first bricks and mortar place in the middle of it all. In fact, in some ways, we were cut a lot of slack that we would not have been cut, in normal times. Everybody was just so grateful that we were there. And so we were very much rewarded for our bravery. So yeah, trying new things and chopping and changing as things worked or didn't work. I think there was a lot of rewards in that. I think on a personal level too, I think it just showed us how resilient we are personally and as a business, and that's given us a lot of confidence going forward. So in many ways it's worked well for us, and I think the pandemic's probably worked quite well for those hospitality businesses who had the courage to step out of their comfort zones in the same way.
I love that you come back to it, and maybe don't know what's conscious about. You talk about those relationships you build with people. It's very important, that one-to-one relationship again, and then you expand your community. You use the Taste Tibet, the platform, to do good, but also to expand the community and the business at the same time. I think that's incredible. Some really good learnings in there for everyone, pandemic or no pandemic, to operate in that way, that you actually have to win one customer at a time. It's not about a social media post. It's not about just having clever marketing strategies and positioning. It's actually being able to build these relationship with people, genuine relationship, and them understanding your philosophy, because in the end of the day, that's what they buy into. It's not, of course, a tasty meal is always great, but you're competing on more, that your business is more than a product. It's more than a plate of food. It's much more than that. I think that's what you've seen as well, and I could hear from your learnings. I think that's incredible. Is there any people on your journey that has been, there's a lot of people that's always influential on us, but it's like, running the business and getting that off the ground, keep on believing in it. You said you got a lot of confidence on the feedback you got from customers and your interaction with community on the pandemic. There's like people that really have influenced you guys to, do this and continue, because, you've gone past the 3-year mark for young business, where many would give up or fail. And now you're in your 8 years, and you're still going. And like, it's there some people on that journey or in the past that really have influenced you to be able to keep on persisting, moving forward, because it is a battle to run a small business or large business, for that sake.
Yeshi always says, his family are a great inspiration to him. Obviously, the recipes is one thing, but their work ethic is another. I mean, I think you can romanticize life in Tibet and herding animals out on the plateau, but in reality, oftentimes that takes place in severe weather conditions, and you have no option but just to go out there, get out there, keep doing what you do, because bad weather days is just you can't wait, and the same with crops. They can't wait to be harvested, so for those who live closer to home as well, not just those who live the tougher nomadic existence out on the wilds of the plateau, but even those who stay closer to home have a hard job working the land. This stuff doesn't wait for anybody. It's relentless. So I think for Yeshi, that's his family have always been a great inspiration and provided some great recipes along the way. For me also personally, my sister Susanna's, who's the one who turned our website around within that week, to give us an online shop, has been an incredible support to us, and also without kind of relevant experience. I mean, neither of us came from a hospitality background when we started the business, and we've been doing a lot of learning along the way. And she herself doesn't have that background, but she's always got ideas and is always there as a great support to us.
I think that the Bod family, like in her family, like blood is from the business, and also my family from the blood from business as well. I think that's also
it is there somewhere.
It's somewhere, but it's somewhere. But so it's just working, very well to adapt any kind of things.
Yeshi also watches a lot of documentaries. He's a big fan of Anthony Bourdain, who always championed the small guy, the street food stalls. And
that's just the kind of not only like a fancy restaurant. That's what I mean. It's like he goes like in a small place and really tests really food.
He believes that the best food is street food. He actually don't believe that fine dining can actually
and
deliver
the conversations
it.
with the people the ordinary people often on the streets, or inside the small restaurants. What was their story? Where has this come from? I think Yeshi's been quite inspired by him, and for us, writing the cookbook, we had to do the hateful job of reaching out to people for what they call endorsements. Here's our lovely book, and we need a quote, because we're unknown authors, to put on the back cover, so that someone who stumbles across it will.
Like the Ken Holmes,
So yeah, we met Ken Hom that way, and he's been a great inspiration.
Yeah, he's like the food is like a huge subject, and he teaches the people. That's this is amazing to encourage for the other people.
I mean, he's just an amazing example of somebody who, he started from nothing. His autobiography is recently came out. It's called My Stir-Fried Life, and he was born really in poverty in Chicago. His dad died a few months after he was born, and his mum worked all the jobs and didn't speak any English, and this was somebody who, against all the odds, became a kind of global celebrity. But having attained that, his feet are so firmly on the ground. He is an absolute example, a shining example, of somebody who's achieved it all, but will still make all the time, for the new guys coming up. I mean, he's become our pen pal now. We email several times a week, and he's incredibly humble and friendly, and that's been a joy.
That's a great, I would call it even a Swiss knife of skills and experience and background to have behind you and still support you. So now you're not from hospitality, and that also helps sometimes because you don't have the barriers of this is how we were meant to do it, this is how we used to do it, which I think sometimes for myself as well is one of the biggest barriers. What did you see there's in view for, if you had a crystal ball for hospitality? There's a lot of predictions out there, but what's going to happen, you think, about the whole restaurant world? What is your view as a little operator, and how do you see? Are you optimistic, and how do you see things?
I think I am optimistic for those people who can stay adaptable, humble, and open to change, because I think that these are that's going to be very important for at least the foreseeable future, because nobody knows where this is going right now. I mean, all that we do know is that prices are going to continue to go up. I mean, inflation is not in our favor, and it's a very difficult time to be recruiting good people into the industry. People who for us, we mentioned very important to us that we find people who share our values. So, finding people who really see hospitality as a career choice, and not just something that gives them a few pennies while they do their studies, or whatever else it is that people take the odd shift here and there for. I think it's going to be difficult to find those people who are willing to commit to the industry, given how volatile it has been and looks likely to be going forwards. But I think the rewards will be there for those businesses who are able to who have multiple revenue streams, who are able to try a bit of this and try a bit of that. I think for us, I mentioned that we've weathered this storm quite well, because we have not just the dine-in element to our restaurant, but also hot takeaway, cold food takeaway. We've also added deliveries to that recently. I think people have become used to convenience, used to being able to go online and order what they want to be delivered or to be ready, within a short space of time. And I think that those businesses, those restaurants, I mean, obviously hospitality is much bigger than just restaurants, but for those restaurants who have been able to change the way that they work to adapt to that, there are rewards. And I think that I personally think that it's going to be changeable and difficult, but not impossible for those businesses who will chop and change and respond to what their customers need.
What about because what you do with your business is also, you do more than, you mentioned that a couple of times, we're more than just a restaurant business, more than just food. We want to make the world a better place. what does hospitality's role play in that? Because that's normally not something we really attained in. There's a lot of talk about sustainability in the menu now, that, also helping the NSS when there was in the knees and so on. But is hospitality's role really changing now, also being part of actually really impacting, the way we do things in the world?
Well, we have a real responsibility, don't we, to make sure that we source our ingredients responsibly. I mean, one thing that we do is we look at our menu very carefully and try to buy our vegetables, for example, in bulk. So we have dishes that share certain ingredients, so that we're not having to go here, there, and everywhere for them, so that we can cook from one big box of this or one big box of that, but turn it into different things along the way.
Yeah, because we buy the local kind of possible, and some support for the other businesses, small local people. That's what will happen. So we need to keep local. Is much better than the food comes from far away.
Support the smaller businesses and
Yeah.
support the people who are growing locally,
Yeah, and
producing locally where possible.
Small business, they have employ more people than a big supermarket. That's the way stay the money stayed locally, and then they can employ more people. That's our recommend.
The food always tastes better anyway. So it's not something that we look to doing because we are charitable by nature. That's got nothing to do with it. The food the results will always be better if you take some responsibility. As a festivals business as well, we have to look at what we use to make sure that our environmental footprint is as light as possible. And from the very beginning, we were only ever using compostable, recyclable containers. But all of that has become, that as a kind of marketplace has become ever more complex. So it's not something that you can just sit on your laurels and say, we found the right receptacle for this or for that. There's a job to do in making sure that we keep up with developments in that area, and make sure that we keep supporting those businesses who are doing the best job. I think you asked, also what is hospitality can do to help. It's more than that. To help make the world a better place, it's more than just looking at where we source our ingredients or food boxes from. But I think people also come to us for an experience. So it's more than just food. I think that we also have a responsibility to look after people. And again, we've mentioned this a few times, but we've always seen Taste Tibet as more than a place that people come to for tasty food. Yes, you mentioned right at the beginning that there were always people who would come by the stall in the early days, sometimes just for a chat, not even for food. We have a responsibility to be, as far as we can be, open and available to give people a positive experience, a happy moment in their day.
I love that. It's all, again, you come back to that thing again about connecting with people, and that's where you really can make the difference as well, and also tell people about food and where it comes from, because I think we touched on in the beginning as well. A lot of people don't know where food come, and I love the whole thing about, you talked about on a Saturday we look what we can actually do with the food, and I guess your waste is very
we have
low.
no waste.
No waste.
No waste. You can see, I'll just from what you said, and I think that's again a really great way of how to make the world a better place in a very simple way, if we just avoid food waste at as much as we can, and actually try to repurpose
Part
it.
of that is good fortune, because our food loves the freezer. Our curries and stir fries and our momo dumplings, they love the freezer. But then there's also thought that goes into the menu in the first place. What is the kind of food that is going to be happy on day two? That we don't have salads and things, or not much of it, that will perish. So there really is zero waste at the end of the weekend, which is something that we're super proud of.
Yeah, that's a super inspirational, because I think and it's not about we don't solve everything with food waste, but again, it's one element out of all of the things you said. It's not just doing one thing, it's the algorithm of doing these things together. How do you guys keep on going? You talked a bit about the feedback you got from customers, and those relationships really make you believe in the purpose and move on. But how do you actually, I call it show up pro every day. How do you do it? Because it takes a lot to run a small business again, especially for the founders. And you are man and wife, so everything is in one plate. That's not like somebody has another job that's going to make sure there's food on your table and your kids have clothes on.
You have to come from a place of genuine passion. And when you do that, it actually comes quite naturally. But I think that on top of that, I think we spend probably all of our spare time. We certainly don't have, kind of idle evenings in front of Netflix. We spend all of our time doing research, and that takes different forms for both of us. I mentioned that Yeshi loves to watch documentaries. He loves to watch the chefs cook, or even if it's Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. I personally hate that one. It's foul-mouthed, but he says he learns a lot, about what not to do in the kitchen. So he's doing his research that way. I'm always online. There's just a wealth of information that is available now, isn't there? You don't even need to step outside to do your learning. It's out there. It's on social media. I follow people very closely. I'm always looking at, how people are doing things a little bit differently, or there's always something interesting out there that we can bring to our table. And I think that because we come at this from a place of real, drive, passion, ambition, it's in some ways it's easy for us, which is not to say that there are not bad days. And certainly Yeshi gets very tired. He's on his feet all day in the kitchen, and we are a husband and wife team, but because our roles are quite defined, I'm never in the kitchen. You wouldn't want me in there. We're working on this in different ways, and that brings different energy and different findings, and always really interesting to us. What we both kind of unearth, and always bringing us to a new place.
If you could give like an advice to hospitality leaders or leaders in general in the world right now, what would that top advice be?
I think there's a few things, and one is be authentic, and make sure that you're coming from a place, your business is run from a place of genuine passion, or it's not going to work. I think something that has been important for us that we've learned along the way is to learn to take criticism. I think good feedback always feels great, and it's easy to dismiss the bad or to want to dismiss it. But there's always something that you can take from it. And that's where the learning really happens, especially in an environment like today, where we're adapting and shifting all the time. We're trying new things, and some things will inevitably go better than others. We mustn't be afraid to ditch what's not working, or to take the criticism, whatever form it takes along the way.
So for me, it's like, in the kitchen, I employ all the young people, So I say then, not only for the kitchen job, or your life. So how you want it in the future, but not for the kitchen, like in a restaurant. It's just obviously we need to do best as possible we need to do. But, it's like, I know that whole my life experience I go through. And then, so now we are back, my life experience I give them to teach them to how we live. So not only for the restaurant job, but it's their life. I can teach them, how it works.
But they can teach us, and I think that's another thing. Always to be listening to.
So encourage them, and then they can teach us as well. But we just first encourage them first, and then you don't worry about. And so we need to work together, and like a family, but because this is like your family work together in one place, and sometimes we spend more hours than with your family. We are in the kitchen restaurant all days, and go home to sleep, and then come back tomorrow and then working in the restaurant.
I think it's very important to make those investments in your staff, to make sure that you know what's going on for them beyond the four walls of the restaurant. Because if you make that time, and as you said, you so often spend more time at work than you do with your family. It's a different family that you're creating, especially in a small business environment. You have to understand what's going on and make allowances for it. We're all human,
Yeah,
and
so they have the life, which kind of life there we don't know. So we need exception. We need to give them to help support them to make sure they're happy, and also they help them to the how we to
achieve what they want to achieve.
yeah, that achieved, and but also to just like guide them properly. That's the I think it's good way to look after them, and then they look after us. That's the I think I learned from.
I was going to say just a final piece of advice, which is just something different, but it's taken us nearly 8 years to get to this point, and I think, and we've touched on this previously, but taking your time. I think that anything is always built slowly, and trial and error naturally forms a part of that, and especially right now, I think that for right now it'd probably be quite foolish to put all eggs in one basket and rush headlong into things. We don't know what how this sector's going to survive the next couple of years, and so going slowly, taking your time, and doing your research along the way. Watching how others are moving. I think that's, I hope, a useful piece of advice.
I love that. Again, I mentioned it before, go slow, actually make sure. And then I love the piece about, how you try to learn from each other, and also how you give life skills. And I think that's something we forgot to talk about in hospitality, because I think that's what I liked about my early stage of my career in hospitality was the life skills I could use no matter what I was doing. It's communicating with people. It's trying to understand other people's needs, even though you don't come from the same place. It's respect, all those kind of things. There's more, people call it soft thing. I call it really the hard things that makes you really be able to navigate when it's get uncertain. Because it's life skills. It's a way of surviving in a way. I love that bit as well. Is there any questions you wished I've asked you? And what would you have answered if there's any?
I think when we chatted originally, Michael, we spoke about food in Tibet and even in India to a large degree, where Yeshi lived for a long time, and we touched on it briefly, but I think that we have a lot to learn from Yeshi's responses to how we eat here in the UK, probably in the West in general, coming from the perspective of somebody who had never been to a big supermarket before he arrived in the UK, who didn't know that cookbooks existed. Cooking was something that you just learned and became intuitive from a very young age, and learning which ingredients went together, or, as I think he mentioned, how to approach a vegetable that you haven't come across before, but which looks similar to one that you maybe have cooked with, and losing the fear around that, and gaining confidence in the kitchen. I think we would love to have talked more about your insights, Yeshi.
Yeah, so like that just don't scared. It's just the food is the food, and it just you just make some just what do you got in your basket or in your fridge, just to make it you can make a delicious dish.
But also the importance of seeking out, learning what a fresh vegetable looks like versus one that's been frozen and packaged, and learning why chicken breasts come in different sizes, and how to respect one that doesn't maybe look as kind of perfect as the others.
I think I'm going to take you up on that, because then when your book comes out, maybe we need to revisit another episode where we talk a bit more about the love of food, and and it's interesting you talk about there was no recipes, it's principle, cooking by principles. That's how I learned to cook for my mom as well. Like how do you actually put a meal together? How do you create the centerpiece of something and understand how you do that? So I think there'll be something out there for you guys out there, in a couple of, coming out on the
17th of March.
17th of March. The book is out there. And then we'll definitely have a look at that and see how we can revisit that, because I'm sure when we see what's inside that, we can really start elaborating a conversation about that. Where can people find you if they want to know more? if they, if they're in Oxford or if they're going to Oxford, or, how do we communicate with you guys?
Obviously, they can come and visit us at our restaurant in East Oxford. And if they sign up to our mailing list on our website, which is tastetibet.com, we send out a weekly email with our news and stories, insights, sometimes recipes from Tibet. And then we're also on Instagram at Taste Tibet and on Facebook.
Yeah, so we have lovely photos, videos from Tibet, and we show that, and so culture, and we show everything. So, and also we can farm that sometimes you check on the website. We go to festivals, like everywhere. So
over the summer we'll be at quite a few different festivals. So if you're not in Oxford and you'd like to visit us somewhere else, just follow us and we'll always let you know where we'll be.
And also we had some balls, Cambridge, Oxford. We do the balls as well.
If you're a lucky student.
Yeah, so lucky student. So stay at the balls. It's really fun.
Great. So we'll put all that in the show notes as well, so people can connect with you and ask any additional questions, because it's always difficult to cover everything in these conversations. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your incredible journey and building a purpose-driven business, and actually, your philosophy around it. I think it's been really, really helpful for everyone that's going to tune in, and I'm sure they're going to have huge value listening into this conversation.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
Amazing, Julia and Yeshi. Love your energy and commitment to make the world a better place through food and business. I will recommend you now to ask yourself, what can I do to make sure that my purpose are in the driving seat when I make decisions for my life and business? To get further inspiration on how to lead with purpose in your life and business, please check out episode number 6 on hospitality and the infinitive game around purpose and profit. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please share, rate, review, or subscribe to one of our channels. A big thank you to BizSimply for supporting us, bringing great insights, strategies, and tools to help the industry thrive, not just survive. Check them out at bizsimply.com or on their social at BizSimply or BizSimplyHQ. You can also email them directly on advice@bizsimply.com. A big thank you to Fina Charlton, who is the show producer and editor from the Podcast Collective. Tune in next time for another interview, and in the meantime, find out more about us and subscribe to the newsletter for more Maverick insights at hospitalitymavericks.com. And don't worry, if you didn't get all of this, there will be links in the show notes. I'm Michael Tingser, and you've been listening to the Hospitality Maverick podcast show. Be Maverick.